the reduction in commodity prices, and this is an additional hit because India, which was importing, as I said, 200 million tons of coal till last year, the imports have come down almost, in the last month it was 27% below the same month last year, and in the month of July also it was around 25% less. So it's come on down quite dramatically, because what has actually happened, and there again, if we can be of any assistance to some of you, Coal India provides 80% of coal in India. They produced around 494 million tons last year. Non-Coal India, another 100 million tons. So in all, we were doing about 600 million tons here. The requirement was about 800 million tons, and that's why we imported 200 million tons. But this is now growing quite rapidly. This year, the production is up by 9.5%, which is unprecedented. There are certain steps that have been taken by Coal India, which has resulted in this increase in production. The third point that I wanted to mention to you is reference to the first statement that I made, that coal has always been dirty. Now it is becoming, or it's being termed as dirtier because of the concerns for environment. And I'd like to share with you what we are doing in terms of sustaining the environment, sustaining the forests. Whereas we can't dispense with coal because that is essential for our energy requirements, especially in the stage of development that we are in. Same would be the case in most of the African countries. There would be international pressure to cut down on coal production. But I have been questioning this, that whereas it is absolutely imperative to see that environment doesn't get adversely impacted, until unless we have a clear alternative source for energy, we'll have to continue to depend on coal for at least next a decade and a half. That being so, whereas on the one hand, India is committed to adding to their non-conventional energy potential, which Mr. Tripathi will talk about soon, but the base requirement shall be met by coal. So coal will be essentially required. Consequently, Coal India, which is, as I said, is the principal contributor to coal production in India, is planning to mine 1 billion ton by 2020, almost doubling the coal production. Now that being so, there are genuine concerns that this may adversely impact the environment. What we are doing in India is to see first, how do we continue to clean coal so that it does not impact the environment as adversely as it normally does. And in that sense, we do plan to set up washeries here, 15 of them, and we do hope, and we are pretty sure that by 2017-18, we should be able to ensure that only washed coal gets transported from one place to the other. What we are also doing is, and which is not so well known, is that for every hectare of land that is taken for coal mining, more than twice the land is afforested. So actually, mining is leading to an increase in forest cover. Now we have evidence to that effect. Unfortunately, what happens, and what would the African nations also be suffering, is someone takes a photograph of where mining is actually happening. There obviously there would be no forest cover. But they don't take the photograph of where afforestation is actually happening. At the point in time when mining is actually happening, obviously the trees will have to be felled. But for every hectare of land that happens, we afforest 2.4 hectares of land. That's the level of forestation, that is the level of our concern. So the country is extremely concerned about the environment, but we don't have an alternative to provide the energy needs. I think some of you would be aware that today, per capita consumption of energy is of the levels of what was there in the US in the 19th century. If that be the case and we're going to develop and per capita consumption of energy is going to increase, where is that energy going to come from? Now, environmentalists would not answer that question. They will say, no, you should stop producing coal because it is impacting the environment. Look at the per capita emission of carbon emission in India. It is 1/4 of China, almost 1/10 of US. It's not that we are not concerned about it. We are indeed very concerned, but our approach is different. We will continue to use coal, but it will be our endeavor to see that coal does not impact the environment as adversely as it would normally. We would continue to afforest land. We'll continue to focus on non-conventional energy. As my friend Mr. Tripathi will tell you, we are looking at 175,000 megawatt of non-conventional energy in the next 5 to 7 years. So there is a serious concern for environment here, but the compulsions are such that we'll have to continue to depend on coal. This is briefly what I wanted to tell you. I would look forward to your questions, and in case you want any details on what has happened on the coal auction front, how you could use that platform for auctioning your natural resources, you're most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. In a very short time, you've really hit the nail on the head, sir. And I think the message that we all are taking back and what we look forward is India's engagement with the continent, with Africa, is not exploitative, and we would want to share and learn from best practices from your side and from our side. So that participation, that partnership is where we wanted to really, by requesting the esteemed speaker Anil Swarupji to come and share his views on the coal sector. We wanted to also signal that our relationship with Africa, we would want to partner in this natural resource with which many African countries are well endowed. Sir, I would also like to share that we are exporting, helping Indian companies. Bharat Earth Moving Limited, which is a very premier public sector, has recently exported mining equipment to a colliery in Zimbabwe, the Huangwe colliery, and we look forward to also engaging in the best practices in mining and other extraction by export of mining equipment, which is again world class that India makes. As sir said, we can take questions about the coal sector or any mining related issues. If the audience has, if there are any questions. Yeah, please identify yourself and then.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Michael Nyurenda from Zambia. I'm from the private sector. I don't know if there's anybody from government from Zambia. But of interest, I think, is the point raised about the transparency, but also value in terms of how you allocate to investors what you bring in terms of looking at your resources. And I think that's one thing I have learned. And in fact, we can extend this actually to the other minerals. As you may know, Zambia is actually endowed. It's not just coal, but I think copper, cobalt, and of late even though it's been kept as a secret, there's uranium as we mine copper. So I think I'll be interested, as a Zambian, first of all, I hope that my government would, but I think we would want to learn and share from that as we work together with India. Thank you.
Thank you for the observation. I think we would welcome any details that are sought. We will be too happy to provide those details. What we've done in the coal sector is applicable to any natural resource, and the same process can be followed and I'm so glad that a person from the private sector says that. I wish there was someone from the Zambian government stating that. We would have immediately got in touch with them and provided them the details. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, sir. I mean, it's very, very interesting to listen to you. I'm a Mozambican, Indian in Mozambique. I have 2 coal concessions in Mozambique.
Can you give your name and all? Yeah.
I'm Jose Pareankan. Of course, I was with EXIM Bank long ago and resigned from EXIM Bank, and I became entrepreneur in 80. Since 25 years, we expanded. I have about 1,500 people working for me in Mozambique, about 300 Indian expatriates, plus other places. We are into various projects. We had also, when the coal locations were taking place, I also participated in the tenders and all that. We got 2 concessions. I invested about $3.5 million in the initial survey and periphery and all that. There is potential long term, but now the coal prices are really gone down drastically, and especially you are one of the architects of that, because India and China control the coal markets and the prices in the world, and they are the biggest users. Naturally, it is in their interest really to bring down the lobby. So the investment actually has become very, very long term. So for smaller players like us to hold on to it is difficult. So I just want a frank opinion in terms of short and medium term. Should we dispose it off, recover our money, what we spend?
If I had that answer, I would have been making some money, not sitting here talking to you.
Because we are thinking seriously of cutting our losses and getting.
We can have a chat over a cup of tea.
Thanks, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. The question there?
No, my question is about, because the mining is a very important sector. And, without mining, the industries of transformation could not work. Is correct? If we have no mining, we cannot transform, because the industries need raw materials, right? Without raw material, no transformation. And economy, stop, finished. As people don't work because no transformation, no job, I'll go home and economy collapse. So what happened in this question is about the production. If the production increase in China, India, so the price, what you do, the price decreases. When the price decreases, no money, and you close your company, send people home, no work, because no money. What to do now? What to do now? We have to create a system of looking the marginal profit and the total profit, so that if the price decreases, we still stay over the break-even point. So there are some economists here like me. The break-even point is where you sell, your costs are covered, come back, the return on investment, but you have still a little margin of profit. That is, you overcome the break-even point.
What's the question, sir?
The question is now, that's the point I come now, how you can help them, as opposed to say, India government, so that we control the price of coal, so that always we don't send people home to close the company or to say, we don't have money. Your question. Okay, thank you.
We are consciously trying to go away from the controlled economy. In India, we've experimented that since 1991, and it has worked. There would be times when you would feel that the prices are too depressed, but we do believe that over a period of time, if you look at it, it is not that they will remain depressed for all times to come. And it happens in every commodity, not merely in coal. You look at all the commodities keep going up and down. So there are other mechanisms through which you can handle that. But controlling economies, I am not very sure whether that's the right answer.
Thank you, sir. With these, I think now, where the real disruption is going to come from Mr. Tripathi, because he is going to talk about resources which are, renewable. He's going to talk about wind and the sun. And what happens when we have a world which is renewable completely, and then what happens to the coal? Of course, as we invite Mr. Tripathi, I also note that our Honorable Minister Chinnamasa sir, Honorable Minister from Zimbabwe, sir, I welcome you to the meeting, sir. Sir, please take your seat, sir. Sir, please, say you come on this one. Sir, would you come here? So we have another minister joining us. Shortly he will be joining us. So we were a panel discussion, sir. As I welcome the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Development in our midst. Yes, and I also welcome the Indian Ambassador to Zimbabwe, Your Excellencies. We just had a very fine presentation and a discussion by the Government of India's senior most official in the Coal Ministry, the Coal Secretary of India. He just now completed his discussion and interaction. We had very interesting questions about the coal, how the coal and the mining sector in India underwent a major transformation, and how the future is for the coal sector. We just concluded that discussion, sir, and we welcome you. I will now request our other very senior colleague, Mr. Upendra Tripathi ji, who is the Secretary Government of India in the Renewable Energy Ministry, doing the solar and the wind and all the renewables. Sir, we want your presentation, sir. Thank you.
Honorable Minister on the dais, my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. In fact, a series of events are going on. The African Summit is there. and all round there is an atmosphere of joy and fraternity. I had a ministry, in fact, shortly my minister will be coming, and he's a great passionate speaker. You will enjoy his speech. He's very passionate about renewable energy, and he also combines power ministry, coal and renewable. He holds all the three forts, and we have three secretaries he always would like to have around. Very odd combinations. In fact, sometimes we talk why power, and we call power ministry and renewable energy ministry. So they say it is power that leads to energy, and of course coal, it's a combination. But although my colleague Anil called coal as dirty energy, it is actually he who is funding us, and he has made India proud because India is the only country which took its carbon tax from 50 rupees per ton 1.5 years back to 200 rupees per ton, which is four-fold increase in carbon tax in a span of less than 2 years. No other country in the world has increased its carbon tax to promote environment or even renewable energy. So despite the transparency brought into coal, it is he who is giving us the money to do the renewable energy. So we won't say the coal down because of the carbon tax, we are actually funding a lot of programs, and all the best to him. The other question in the morning, somebody asked me, which is older, the Ministry of Environment or Ministry of Renewable Energy? And we checked up the facts, and we found that the Ministry of Renewable Energy was older by 4 years. It came in 1982, and the Ministry of Environment came in 1986. And again, I think one of the very few countries in the world which established a ministry way back in 1982. And of course, people ask, what is the name of the ministry is New and Renewable Energy, and that was decided in 1996. So between 96 and now, of course, the new has not changed. But yes, we have changed areas, a lot of new forms we are looking into. And as a ministry, we have fairly, in fact, during last 2 years, our budget has gone from 1,500 crores in the, that is 150, 1,500 crores to around 3,500 crores. Almost it has doubled, more than doubled, and we expect it will be tripled before the year end, which means it is again showing the importance that the government is attaching to this ministry. We have brought in a whole lot of new programs and schemes. In fact, in all these schemes, there is a lot that we can share with the countries from Africa and from all of you, whatever experience you have got. But before coming to the schemes, I must come with the pet idea of our Honorable Prime Minister. And he talked a year back about something called the Global Solar Alliance. And what he had in mind was that the countries, of around 122 countries, because initially we calculated that the number was less, but then there were countries who had islands that are located between the line of Capricorn and line of Cancer. Now the number has gone to 121 and 122. And the Honorable Prime Minister's idea is that if these countries, which are located between the line of Capricorn and Cancer, because of the sheer location, they have access to a lot of solar resources. In fact, they have 300 minimal, at a minimum 300 solar days, which are smiling days, the sunny days. And there is a lot of resource hidden in it. And these countries also have some unique problems. For example, if you go to a solar plant in India, in Rajasthan, for example, every week we have to wash it twice. In fact, you'll find boys going and putting water to the panels. But go to USA or even Europe, the washing is very uncommon. May not even be once in a year because there is no dust. And if you study the solar panels in India, you will find at the edge of the panels the unique mix of humidity, dust, and the wind pattern. It also makes a sludge. The point was, it's very, usual to have such common problems, quite common to many of these countries located in this region. So our Prime Minister's idea was that if they can come together to a common platform, and they can exchange ideas, best practices, and focus on solar, because if you look at solar in India, for example, in 2010, our ministry had tendered solar energy for purchase, and we used to pay 18 rupees per unit of solar energy. Each unit, 18 rupees, and we had promised to pay them for 25 years, and still today we pay. Every year in the budget of the ministry, we have 2,000 million rupees which goes to those people who could take the risk in 2010. When nobody was talking about solar energy, they could come forward and said, okay, here we are. We will invest, we will take the risk and give us for 25 years a PPA. We gave. From 2010 until 2035, we will pay them at 18 rupees per unit of energy. And today, it is 5 rupees 50%. In a span of 5 years, the cost of solar energy per unit has come down in India from 18 rupees to 5 rupees 30%. Well, it is not unique to India. It is common to many countries. But then it has come down because the cost of capital has come down, the cost of technology has come down, and there is a general decline in the cost of solar energy, and that is why we feel this combination of countries, this common platform, will benefit a lot. And this fact, in fact, we haven't decided on the final name because that is for the steering committee to decide internationally. But tentatively, the agency's name will be something like the International Agency for Solar Technologies and Applications. And this is likely to be announced by the Honorable Prime Minister and the French President, along with some more proposers, willing countries, on 30th in Paris. And that will be a unique event where most of the, where many countries from Africa and India can come together in a common platform, along with other friends, where we can talk of mutual experience, we can talk of how things can be taken further. Now, the other day, of course, somebody said, what is the unique thing about this INSTA? We have many other international agencies who deal with ideas. Well, the emphasis here is on practice. The emphasis by INSTA is on programs and projects. And the two most priority items out of 5 we have proposed, one is that in every country, including India, all students must have access to solar lights. Today we have around 250 million people who still don't have access to electricity in India. And technology is available. In fact, we are now going for a home lighting system where grid cannot reach during the next 1,000 days, because the government have announced that 18,000 villages in India do not have access to electricity, and within a span of 1,000 days, all these villages should be given electricity. And we said that we did an estimate out of 15,000 villages out of 18,000 can be brought under grid, but not the remaining 3,000 villages, and that is where we are planning solar. We are giving the lamps to the students. We are planning for the home lighting systems where microgrids or mini grids have failed. And that apart, we have 11,000 villages which we electrified with renewable energy technologies in the past. We have 0.6 million biogas plants. Some of them are used for energy generation. We have rich experience, and this international mechanism, the platform that we are talking about, is to share this mutual experience to make sure that energy access is made possible for others. And so I would request you for your support in this endeavor, and the projects and programs that it will run will basically promote energy access, and particularly solar energy access in all. This apart, I must share a little bit about the unique programs that we have brought about. One is unique, one is that in India we give a PPA for 25 years. No other country actually gives you. If you come today and invest in India, we give you a purchase power agreement for 25 years, which is very, the price remains fixed for 25 years. And last year we did something called Reinvest 2015. And you will be surprised to know that the industry, globally, we had many countries present here, the total commitment was 273,000 megawatt, saying that we are prepared to invest in India. In fact, we never knew what actually is the demand. And this Reinvest, the global investors meet last year, brought us a number of new things, and one of these was that the industry world over is willing to come to India and invest for 270,000 megawatt of solar and wind and other renewables. And the second revealing thing was that the banks put together, whether it's ADB, World Bank, KfW, ADB or European Investment Bank, they are all willing, along with our banks, to invest up to 73,000 megawatt financing alone. And between that year and this year, in February we are planning for the Reinvest 2016, where you are almost welcome. A lot of things have moved. We are seeing how to bring in new innovative financial mechanisms to reduce the cost of capital in the renewable energy sector. we are also planning to make a request to bodies like World Bank saying that a portion of your credit exposure must be earmarked for renewable energy. And that is when actually most of the countries, including the INSTA proposed member countries, can benefit. Because the cost of hedging for India is very costly. It is in fact more than 7%. Now, if we pay more than 7% to hedge the currency, then the cost itself becomes prohibitive, and that is when we are saying that there should be some mechanism also for checking the hedging cost globally. And 3 programs I think I should mention, which we can share with others. One is, of course, 100,000 solar pumps we are giving to farmers, 50,000 youth we are training as workers to service the rooftop sector, and 25 solar parks we have brought in India. And for more details, you can visit our webpage, but otherwise, we will be in touch with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would invite questions on the renewable energy sector, solar, wind, from the House, if there are any questions or any observations or comments. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Everything seems to be. We now take this opportunity to welcome Excellency, the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Development of Zimbabwe. Excellency, your coming and gracing this occasion is very nice. We very honored that you have come. We also would like to share with the audience that subsequently, after we are just waiting for the Energy Minister of India to also join us. He's flying in. He's out in another county, and he's just I'm told on his way here. And then in his presence, sir, we would be executing a signature ceremony. We would be doing a loan agreement of $87 million for renovation of a very important power plant in your country, the Bulawayo Power Project. You may like to tell us about that project, about the energy situation in your country. Sir, you are also aware that EXIM Bank has identified Zimbabwe as one of its very important focus countries. And in many projects, the EXIM Bank is supporting the development efforts in your country, sir. We know there are challenges your economy has faced, and we would also like to hear from your good self about the steps that your country is taking to get out of the debt trap in a way, while we are fully in alignment with our government's directives. But we know as a financial institution that we also look forward to engaging so that these investments all add up to a rapid GDP growth in your economy, sir. And under your leadership, I'm sure things are on track. Sir, the floor is yours. I request you to deliver your special address. You may choose to do it from here, sir, if it's okay. Thank you.
First, let me acknowledge the invitation and the hospitality of the Indian government and people, and in particular...
We also have the privilege to honor our Honorable Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal. Sir, as impeccably on time, sir, we just looking forward. So the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Development.
I was out of Delhi, I just came in.
He just flew in, sir, for this program, sir. So, yes, Excellency.
Let me repeat that I acknowledge profoundly the invitation and the hospitality that my president and his delegation have received from the Indian government and authorities, and in particular from India EXIM Bank. I want to acknowledge also the presence of the Energy Minister from India. I welcome you, sir, and it is my pleasure to meet you for the first time. I was last in New Delhi in 1986. I came as as a new young parliamentarian to a parliamentarian forum, and I see that New Delhi is transformed, has changed. It's almost beyond recognition. So this, of course, is testimony to the strides that India has made in its economic growth and also to its development. I'm going to speak for Africa, but also I'm going to speak for Zimbabwe, which is the country that I represent. But of course, our experience in Zimbabwe are a microcosm of the experience in the entire continent. We are a mirror in a way of what also takes place in the continent. Let me say that Africa has been registering quite impressive growth, economic growth, with some countries registering growth rates of 6, 8, 9%. But we still face as a continent challenges, and these challenges are in particular in the infrastructure sector. We have huge infrastructure gaps, and in particular roads to link us as countries. By the way, Africa is not one country, it's a continent, and we are 53 countries on the whole continent. Although I'm aware that sometimes we are looked at as one country, we are 53 countries. But because of colonialism, most of us were not linked to each other, but we are linked to the coast and linked to the mother country, so to speak, to the colonizing power. Now, the challenge we are facing as a continent, as countries, as African Union, is to find infrastructure that links us to each other, in particular roads, railways, and airways. We still have the embarrassment that to visit one country from one African country, sometimes we have to reach it via Europe or via Middle East. That is quite not sustainable and not in the interest of the continent. So it's very important that we have infrastructure. We also have infrastructure gaps in water, ICT, energy, and big time. So the previous speaker, what I caught of his contribution was music to my ear. Because in Zimbabwe, energy deficit is huge, and it's a gap that we need to fill in order to create a firm foundation for our economic takeoff. As already the Master of Ceremonies has already alluded to, Zimbabwe has had many challenges. We have had a history of struggle, first fighting for our independence, an armed struggle lasting 17 years. And the core issue in that struggle was land distribution. We entered into an arrangement with the British whereby this issue was to be resolved through resources being made available by the British government and the American government to pay compensation to white farmers. And this was to start after 10 years, so that after things had stabilized. When we called the British and the Americans to honor this commitment, they reneged on those commitments. So we had to start once again the struggle for our land, and that cost us dearly because it caused imposition of sanctions and it undermined our capacity to honor our external obligations. So where we are, the major binding constraints are the debt overhang, which is around 6.8 billion. For a small country, is quite huge, and also the sanctions. But we have seen over the few weeks and months an easing of relations, a rapprochement between us and Europe. And of course, the United States will, I'm sure, in due course follow. But the rest of Europe is actually going with us. Now, to resolve the debt issue, we entered into a staff monitored program with the IMF. And I'm happy to say that since I became Minister of Finance 2 years ago, we have been able to successfully meet our targets, both quantitative and structural. We were assessed December last year, we met our targets. June this year, we met our targets, and the last assessment will be for the end of December, and it will be done in February next year. Now, we were able to organize a meeting in Lima, Peru, along the sidelines of the World Bank annual meetings. And I'm happy to say that the strategy that we proffered to the creditors was overwhelmingly supported. This is to clear the arrears. For some of you who are aware, who know the rules of the World Bank, African Development Bank, and IMF, they don't give you new money unless and until we've cleared your arrears. So the strategy is to clear the arrears. And hopefully, with the clearance of arrears, we can enter into a new financing program in order to recover and resuscitate our economy. I think we have maintained the course, and I think we are on that course. Also, other infrastructure gaps are in the areas, as I've mentioned, of social infrastructure, in education, in health. But above all, we need lines of credit, and this is where India EXIM Bank comes in. We need lines of credit to the productive sectors, manufacturing, tourism, agriculture, mining. And I wanted to say here that in Zimbabwe, we are richly endowed in mineral resources. We have in all 68 different kinds of minerals. We hold 19 of the 21 strategic minerals. But the potential in the ground needs to be realized. So the point I wanted to highlight here is that our challenges, whether it's Zimbabwe or Africa, are your opportunities, business opportunities, to invest in our country. So don't feel sorry for us. These are opportunities to invest on the continent and in Zimbabwe. We want, and I wanted to say this, that this platform or this forum is being held on the sidelines of the India-Africa Summit. And I want to thank you to Minister of Energy and to the Indian government, and if you could pass this on to your Prime Minister, to thank you for making contact with Africa. We are very near you, a stone throw as it were, and we want a platform which can provide us a win-win solutions and cooperation to meet these gaps. Our challenges, as I've said, are your opportunities, and we need to build on the strong historical ties that lie between India and Africa. For Zimbabwe, as you know, we have been in the same situation historically. We were all both former colonies of the British government. We are all English speaking. So culturally, we are very close. We were all both members of the Commonwealth until the situation of sanctions and expulsion that we received from the Commonwealth, but we enjoyed a lot of really good relationships together. But because of our sanctions, it has taught us one or two things, that we must never again in our history put our eggs in one basket. Before the sanctions, all our baskets were in the basket of the British and the Europeans. So when they imposed the sanctions, it was like closing a tap. And that's what situation we find ourselves. Now, to get out of it, we have committed ourselves to a look east policy. Look east policy. This is where the sun rises. And we believe that this is the area where there are new opportunities for Zimbabwe, and not only for Zimbabwe, but also for Africa. We have also learned that we should diversify our relationships, economic relationships. And it is in this regard that I'm here. We are here with a strong commitment to develop and strengthen our economic cooperation with India. We are happy that the Indian government has set aside for the 2014-2015 year 72 billion. And my appeal to India is that our two continents must work together, step by step, side by side. Please, we are behind you in terms of development. We need to catch up, hold our hand. In future, you never know, we can hold your hand. The nature of collaboration that I want to see taking place between Africa and India, between India and individual African countries, is that there be support to the private sector. We are looking at a private sector-driven growth, which is why the meeting that I just left, we had quite some 21 Indian firms. We have expressed interest to invest in my country. And we are open, Zimbabwe is open to investment, just like the rest of the continent is open to investment. Like I pointed out, we are large in terms of resources. These resources need to be exploited. I also need to say that in respect of Zimbabwe, where in the past we could not take decisions about the management of our resources, we now can because of the land reform program. So we have, in a way, although it has come at heavy cost, we have resolved a fundamental colonial question, which was the land question. You cannot have a situation like we had, where 4,000 white farmers held millions, 15, 16 million hectares of land to the exclusion of 14 million black people. That was untenable, but as we corrected it, it came, of course, with a huge price in terms of the sanctions and in terms of the debt overhang. But we are committed to running a sound economy, macroeconomic economy. It's a bit challenging for me because I have the historical problems that I have to deal with while also trying to put things on an even keel, back on track. It's not very easy to balance. It's very difficult. But I'm confident that we are almost there. Now, what are my expectations of India? My expectations of India is that you invest in areas of your strength. And somehow, far as we may, we have some idea what your strengths are, because those firms which come to Zimbabwe, which come to the continent, reflect areas of your strength. And these are in the area of medical. India, I don't know how many Zimbabweans are coming to Zimbabwe. It's lots of them. In other words, we have a lot of dollar monies flowing into India for patients coming for medical treatment. So it's very clear, and the stories they bring back is almost that you can bring people from the dead, which is very, very good publicity for India. That's a good medical expertise. So that is an area where you could also invest in areas on the continent. You are very strong in pharmaceuticals, very strong. That again is an area that you can look into with respect to opening up opportunities in Africa and the continent. You are a strong leader in SMEs. And at the level of our economies on the continent, this is more relevant to us than the most advanced economies. India is a nation of diversity. You have nuclear technology, and also you have SMEs, which basically have the same level of development with a lot of companies on the continent. So there is a lot that we can learn in the area of SMEs. You are very strong in IT. That also is another area of strength. In energy, the music to the ear from the previous presentation was that he was saying the cost of solar has gone down. I wish this could happen to Zimbabwe. I really do. Because the prohibitive, inhibitive factor militating against introduction of solar in Zimbabwe is the cost of solar. If it's what you said it is, please, you are most welcome tomorrow. Because we have sunshine 365 days a year. So sun is not our problem, it's the technology. And we would very much love if in fact you can invest not only in the manufacture of panels, not for just Zimbabwe, but for the bigger market, which is SADC. We are a member of SADC, and we are a member of COMESA. You can come and manufacture in Zimbabwe for the greater SADC region and COMESA market. We also, you need also to know that we have vast resources of coal. And a lot of the interaction that we've held with EXIM Bank of India have been to support our coal manufacturing, to support our thermal power stations. And the loan facility that we are going to sign today, shortly, is to revamp and overhaul an existing thermal power station in the second largest city in Zimbabwe. So I welcome the Indian technology, not only into solar, but also into thermal, and also into, I don't think there's much wind in Zimbabwe. But come and maybe you can discover it for yourself. But we are also into hydro. But hydro has also suffered, because of the climate change, the rains that we used to receive, we are no longer receiving. And in fact, as Zimbabwe, we have gone almost 3 years now in a state of drought. We also welcome investments, and we are very strong in irrigation. We also welcome that. We are very strong in agri-equipment. We are also strong in value addition and beneficiation. Let me just briefly say we have enjoyed lines of credit with India EXIM Bank. We just hope that we will remain faithful to meeting our commitments. But if we fail to do, it's not out of, should we say, it's not intentional. It's not intentional. You know, it's difficult for cash to flow. But clearly, we want you to know that we are as honest as any data can be, both in spirit and mentally. We have a facility with India EXIM Bank, which which we are negotiating in irrigation in 8 of our provinces. We also are negotiating a rehabilitation of Harare Thermal Power Station, and I hope that these negotiations will be successful. This will be to up the output from 20 megawatts to something like 100 megawatts. The loan facility that we are going to sign this evening, will bring and upgrade the output from 26 megawatts to about 90 to 100 megawatts. We also are negotiating something in the area of water supply in 7 of our catchment areas, and we also hope that these negotiations will be successful. Let me say that Zimbabwe is open to do business, is open for investments. We welcome investors, especially Indian investors, because we have some commonality in terms of culture, we have some commonality in terms of history. We understand you. You don't need to explain yourselves. We understand you. You also need to know that we have a sizable Indian population who are citizens of Zimbabwe. And they occupy a big place in our economy, especially in the retail and commercial sectors, as well as in manufacturing. As we go forward, we have already come up with a legislation to provide for a legal framework for joint ventures. These joint ventures could be between government and Indian firms, especially in the area of exploitation of resources, mining, minerals. And that legal framework is already in place. We are in the process of also establishing a legal framework to allow for special economic zones. And we will be coming to Indian firms to invite you to come and invest within the special economic zones. That bill is already drafted and is ready to go to cabinet for approval. Under our economic blueprint, we are putting emphasis on 4 pillars. Firstly, infrastructure and utilities, because we want a firm foundation for our economic takeoff. We are going to take off, no doubt. Time is, you ask the new Indian ambassador of Zimbabwe, the evidence of taking off is already there. It's like we are taxiing on the runway. We want infrastructure, like I said, roads, railways, airways, water, ICT, and those are being put in place. And a lot of investment already is coming into this area. We are emphasizing on value addition and beneficiation. What we are saying is, we have been asking ourselves questions, both as Africa and as Zimbabwe. Why does Africa so richly endowed in minerals? In Zimbabwe we have platinum, we have nickel, we have gold, we have coal, we have chrome ore, we have iron ore in vast quantities. But we have been asking ourselves the question, why have we remained poor and behind when we are so richly endowed? Clearly the answer is we have been exporter of primary commodities. And therefore we are a receiver of prices and not a giver of prices. And we want to see that that is corrected as we go forward. So our emphasis as a country is on value addition and beneficiation, so that we can also enter the market of industrialized countries. So don't blame us in future when you think that we are now also contributing to industrial pollution. Zimbabwe is attractive to investment because we offer political stability. We also have good weather. We also have an educated and skilled workforce. In the energy sector, we are allowing independent power producers. So you can bring your money, make your electricity, sell to Zimbabwean firms or to export. We allow that. So we are welcoming also investments into the SME sectors. And I'm happy that we have a very good relationship with India, through which they have provided us and are developing incubators for promotion of our entrepreneurship and vocational training. What we have found in Zimbabwe is that our education has been too academic. So we want to give to that education, and we are reviewing our curriculum so that we put in skills development as central to that curriculum, and we would want to start from a very early stage. We also need, I need also to add that Zimbabwe is now a member of the Africa Trade Insurance. If you are afraid of any political risk, or if you are afraid to invest in Zimbabwe because of political risk or because of any other considerations, we are now a member. We've ratified the treaty. In the ranking on political country risk, we are put in categories D. And I believe that because of this membership, because that risk has been taken care of, we should now be considered to be elevated to a grade B or C, or at least B. So why I'm saying this is that I would want us to see qualify as a country for concessionary facilities which have a 35% grant element. I'm speaking this so that the management in India EXIM Bank hear me loudly. We would do very well if we enjoyed this 35% grant element, especially at this point in our economic development. I would also want to see, I'm aware that when we raise the resources in India, especially with India EXIM Bank, you insist naturally that the EPC contracts or contractor must be Indian firms. The only appeal to you I make is that can you allow us to do competitive bidding amongst Indian companies so that we have value for money? I don't think there will be any quarrel with that. Everybody will be happy. So let me say that that is just our appeal, that with competitive bidding amongst Indian companies. Lastly, allow us in future to negotiate local content, which currently is pegged at 75% and 25% local. I think given what can be sourced from locally, I think we could have given from contract. I think we can negotiate to see where we can make it higher local content or even lower. It depends with the nature of the contract. And I would want to see that that aspect is negotiated. Lastly, also allow us, I don't know what situation other African countries find themselves. When we borrow resources, where we are creating an asset which generates cash flows to service the loan. In other words, we are creating an asset which has internal capacity to pay for the loan. My appeal is that you allow the interest to be capitalized in the loan so that you don't require us to pay interest from the national budget before the asset is in place. Allow the asset to be in place, allow the asset to generate its own resources, its own cash flow, so that we pay. And you can capitalize that interest. Now, if you put the interest on the budget, you virtually constrain us from borrowing, because you then strain the budget, which our budgets are already constrained, already strained, and then therefore it then means we cannot be able to access as much resources as we can. I can understand taking that position when the resource is creating an asset like a social infrastructure, which does not generate cash flows immediately. And it's only a long-term benefit to the country in terms of an educated population, a skilled population. But in the case where the asset is generating its cash flows and its capacity, and the bank has confirmed and satisfied itself that the asset has capacity to meet the obligations, please allow us that the interest is capitalized. With these few words, I want to thank you for your attention. But above all, we are open to investment from India, not just Zimbabwe, but the entire continent. And we are ready for you. Thank you very much.
Excellency, you have been a star speaker, if I can say. Excellency, you have made such a scintillating presentation about, and you have spoken from your heart, and I will convey, and my Honorable Minister is also here, but the ambassador is here with us, so he is also noted. We have noted your suggestions. Sir, there are many points you have raised which are not at my level, Your Excellency. We will take it up with the appropriate authorities. But sir, I can assure you that the EXIM Bank holds our relations with your country with the highest regard, sir. I may only announce that there are 5 projects currently being supported by EXIM Bank amounting to $163 million, Excellency, in your country. In addition, under another new program, sir, which was started just when this government came, was the buyer's credit, under which we have specially taken approvals from our Commerce Ministry under the National Export Insurance Account, where we have supported with $137.85 million the purchase of vehicles from the Ashok Leyland and purchase of mining equipment and for a water supply and irrigation project, Excellency. And today's $87 million line of credit, the Indian ambassador has been writing to us. The government of India cleared up the proposals, and today we will sign. Excellency, we hold your country's relations in high regard, and your leadership. I know there are very challenging times for your country, but we follow a straight policy of, there are 65 countries which have taken lines of credit from India through EXIM Bank. And our policies are by and large uniform. For the local component, you mentioned 75% is high. So those are things, again, Government of India can choose. But the other lending conditionalities are very much same for other countries as well. But we would continue to support your case. Sir, I would request our Honorable Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal. He needs no introduction to our Indians. He's a star, as we say. He's a lawyer. He's a banker, a chartered accountant, a thorough professional, and he is, as we say, 3 in 1. You know, earlier there were 3 union ministers looking at, one was coal, one renewable energy, and one for the power sector. But in the leadership, in the present leadership, Mr. Goyal Saab has been given all the 3 big ministries, and his secretaries are here. Sir is here. We are extremely honored, sir, that you have come in from Jhajjar. He had flown for another public meeting, but he has taken a helicopter. He's flown back just to address our gathering. Sir, I really welcome you and thank you. And we request you also to, after your address, we would execute the line, the signature ceremony. So we would request sir to stay on for a few minutes after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mathur. Honorable Minister Chinamasa from Zimbabwe, Minister of Finance and Economic Development. And I must say you speak extremely well. It was a delight to hear you express your views, very frank views, very articulate in what you have conveyed to all of us in this room. And in some sense also reminds us of our own history. We've gone through a lot of the problems that your country is going through at a different point of time. And I'm sure with the commitment of the leadership, you will be able to equally overcome these issues in the days to come. Mr. Upendra Tripathi, Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Mr. Anil Swarup, Secretary Coal. Mr. Mathur, of course, is the architect of this evening's program. Mr. Raskina, Mr. Malik, Deputy Managing Directors of EXIM Bank. Ambassador Surinder Datta, who's come in from Zimbabwe. Very distinguished business persons. I'm told most companies which work in Zimbabwe are represented here, Indian companies. I don't know if a business delegation has also come from Zimbabwe yet. Some businessmen from Zimbabwe have also joined us. Ladies and gentlemen. In reality, what the Honorable Minister said reflects the huge potential of what Africa is all about and what India and Africa can do together. As I was listening to him articulate the strengths of Zimbabwe, the strengths of the entire continent of Africa, comprising 53 countries, you said, both working in unison and working independently for shared prosperity of the continent while ensuring the better life for the people of each country, in some sense also reflects the Indian situation within the country. We also have 30 states now,
And while we may not be different countries, we believe in a very collaborative and competitive relationship within the states. We allow our states to compete with each other. We desire that the states excel in their work, and therefore benchmarking one against the other always helps in bettering performance, aspiring for more. And in that sense, I believe Africa has that opportunity today to leapfrog into the modern age rather than go through the pangs of development that many other countries in the world have had to suffer. While I do appreciate some of the problems you have encountered, particularly the sanctions from the European countries, the problems with America, these are issues which have a larger political dimension which need to be resolved over a period of time. But I can assure you, Your Excellency, that India is one country that has always stood the test of time when it comes to relationships with friends. India believes in deep relationships. India has always been a friend to countries which are smaller than us, which have not been able to keep pace with development as we see it around the world. And in that sense, the Honorable Prime Minister is very passionate about this third India-Africa summit. He has taken a lot of interest in bringing together all the nations of Africa to attend this summit. He is very committed and passionate in his desire to see both the subcontinent of India and the continent of Africa take the journey of development forward together, share each other's strengths, support each other wherever one can. And in that sense, today we are signing some lines of credit. In the past, EXIM Bank has given certain lines of credit. But my own experience as a banker says that it's all about credibility. As you build up the credibility, to my mind, for a country like India with the size of our economy, money will not be a constraint in developing and engaging further on this relationship that Zimbabwe and India share. I can assure you, sir, that this $87 million line of credit which you are executing today, in continuation of the earlier lines of credit, may only be looked upon as a beginning. While I appreciate some of your concerns, and I'm sure Mr. Mathur will take it up with the authorities, whether there is a possibility to review some of them. For example, clearly one thing I can assure you is on the competitive bidding, that I don't even think we need to go back to any higher ups. I can reassure you as we speak that every amount spent under a line of credit to your country will only be, contracts will only be given out on competitive bidding amongst Indian companies. So you support them. I think it will be good that we help them in the bidding process, in creating good, robust bids, good technical specifications. In any case, my whole work in the last 17 months in government has been all about auctions and bids and bidding. So I'm sure my secretaries and colleagues in the government will be very, very eminently able to help you through this process. But that's one thing which goes without saying. We certainly cannot favor one company over the other. And we would like you to get the advantage of the best of technology and the best of pricing. So competitive bidding, I would believe you should do for every line of credit, and try to support the nations in that process so that quality standards don't get compromised. Integrity of the process should not get compromised. My own belief is that for any nation to progress, if we are able to demonstrate a high degree of integrity within our working, the counterparties would love to do the business with you. We have seen it in our own country as we move more and more towards transparency, as we have ensured in the last few months that everything that government does is through an equal opportunity, fair and transparent manner. International investment is coming into India in a much larger way. The investing community in the world really has only 3 or 4 important criteria when they are looking at investments. Of course, political stability and security of their investment would be paramount when they look at investing in any country. And that's where the counterparty risk to any investment comes in. But more importantly, if the nation is using that money in a honest and with great integrity, in a transparent manner, if that money is going to serve the people of that country on a larger level, and in some sense meeting the sustainable development goals that all of us in the world have joined hands to finalize. And lastly, they are giving a reasonable rate of return or a reasonable business opportunity. Then I don't think money will be a problem for the development of any country, particularly of Africa. In my own interactions in recent times with investors around the world, my own sense is that there is a deep concern, even amongst the developed world, for the large numbers of people who have remained deprived of food, of shelter, of energy. And while I myself on many forums criticize and I myself take on cudgels with some of the developed nations on issues of propriety, issues of fairness, but I do also realize that we will have to fight our own battles, our own struggles for our people by improving our own systems within the country. We are trying to do that in India. We are making a sincere effort to provide energy access to all, good quality energy, affordable prices. We are making an effort to ensure that skill development is taken up in a massive way all across the country so our people become employable. We are making an effort to develop trade and industry within India to make ourselves self-reliant, expand our own businesses, job opportunities. We are making a serious effort to create a digital India which connects all parts of India and all people of India with modern technology. And in all of this, I would believe integrity of the government, integrity of our processes with which we are running the government has been the hallmark of Prime Minister Modi. And I am quite confident that that is what is being recognized around the world when I see investors wanting to come and invest in India. I can reassure you that India would not be found wanting for any amount of business that you would like us to invest in. The various sectors that you very nicely put out, the medical treatment, the pharmaceutical sector, the IT sector, the tourism sector, all of these sectors have huge potential, both for persons from your country to come into India and vice versa. Certainly the Indians in your country, I'm sure, would also be wanting to expand their businesses, serve the nation which is their home now. And I can assure you that the government of India looks at the relationship with each of these 53 countries as one amongst equals. India believes that each of your African countries, and in particular as we speak today, Zimbabwe and India, share that common history, that common tradition, that common culture that you just now spoke about. And we don't believe that in the years to come, we can separate the interests of India from Africa. Together we comprise nearly 1/3 of the world's population. Together we have the largest amount of people deprived of a good quality of life. Together we have the largest market for the Western world to invest in. And in that sense, your comment about not putting all your eggs in one basket are in effect really a very good learning for all of us. You move from the Western world into the laps of some countries which also tended to have some sort of colonial intentions. One thing you can rest assured that the people who come from the land of Mahatma Gandhi will never have colonial intentions, will never have an intention to I can only reassure you that if we were to work together, let us take a thing like energy access. In my most recent interactions, both at the Sustainable Energy for All, SE for All, in the United Nations, and in a recent Clean Energy Investment Forum, I found that the Western world is taking great pride in their Power Africa program. And when I went deeper into that Power Africa program, I found that the intention was to provide a flashlight, at best a flashlight with a mobile charger, and feel very, very happy and thrilled about it, and get a great deal of satisfaction that we have provided energy access to the people of Africa. In our own country, we are now looking at the same project in a different dimension. We realize the people, the youth of today, are not going to be able to flourish, are not going to be able to come out and work and learn and become good citizens of the world unless you give them a larger amount of energy access. I believe lighting, fans, maybe a small television set, mobile charger, possibly even a refrigerator. Some of these composite items make up for a very basic level of living for a citizen of the world today. And I actually feel very bad when I hear very big stories being made out of the Power Africa program, giving one flashlight and then very proudly proclaiming that, we've added a mobile charger to that flashlight. Here I'm trying to tell my colleagues that the minimum that you will have to look at for anybody is a combination of all of these items. And frankly, revolutions ultimately are made out of this kind of deprivation or neglect of the people of our countries for years and years together. We have problems in our own country in certain areas where large numbers of people have remained deprived of these basic amenities. And I would urge you, sir, that if the money that is worked out between the two countries and used for the welfare of the people is used in a judicious manner, used in a manner to reach the benefits to the maximum number of people, used in a manner to create a skilled workforce, used in a manner to create job opportunities for people over there, to ensure that they have at least a modicum of decent living, which helps them come out of that trap of poverty. And when you mention about the solar prices coming down in India, it's not as if it has happened just out of the blue. It happened because we started very, very transparent, competitive bidding and gave equal opportunity to everybody to compete in that bidding. The competition helped us drive down prices. Of course, we also expanded the market, so larger economies of scale added to the benefit. And now with the same amount of money, we are able to do much more. And then that program feeds, every step feeds on the previous step. So just to give you a little sense of the new way of thinking in India, before Prime Minister Modi took office, India had a program on energy efficiency for providing LED bulbs to the citizens of India. And in the whole year, the government company tasked with this job did about 600,000 LED bulbs. Less than 1 million LED bulbs. The price at that time was about $4.50. Prime Minister Modi had articulated a slogan, one may call it, speed, skill and scale. And I would believe for countries in the African continent, this may be a time to consider that with this strength of the large numbers of people in your countries, you could also look at speed, skill and scale. And we decided that we shall provide LED lighting to every citizen of this country in 3 years' time, which means scaling up from less than 1 million a year to 770 million in 3 years. So even if you take an average, by the 3rd year, we'll be required to give out about 300 million bulbs. So 600,000 to 300 million. That scale up has allowed us to enjoy the benefits of economies of scale. That scale up, coupled with transparent procurement, has helped us to bring down the price from $4.50 for a 7-watt bulb to $1.10 for a 9-watt bulb, and provided by the best of companies. So you have Philips, you have Crompton Greaves, you have world-class companies providing this equipment. Of course, I'm not satisfied. We are looking at a 60-cent target now, and we do hope to achieve it soon. But what I'm only trying to articulate is that we are willing to partner you. We are willing to provide our best manpower. We are willing to send our best officials to work with your teams, not only to provide you equipment, not doing no favor to you at all. The Prime Minister and this government of India does not believe that anything we are doing for the people of Zimbabwe or the people of the African continent are in any way a favor to the people of Africa. It is a responsibility that the world should be sharing. It is a responsibility that we, as fellow citizens of the world, believe is our duty. We believe the Indian and African people share very rich cultural ties for centuries. And in some sense, if one was to go back to Alex Haley and the roots, I'm sure we all also go back to Africa in some sense, sometime in our history. In fact, at Yale, when we were doing a program, there was a professor who was teaching us about the DNA testing, and I don't recollect now exactly, but he did literally tell all of us which part of Africa we came from. And by the way, the program that Mr. Mathur mentioned where I had gone today was the part of India from where I come from. It's a place called Agroha in Haryana, and all of us Goyals and Agarwals come from Agroha. And while I was speaking there, I was thinking that from my Indian roots, where I'm speaking in the afternoon, I'm moving to Delhi to speak about possibly my African roots. So in that sense, please trust us as your partners, as your friends. We as a country and the people of India are committed to this relationship with Africa, with Zimbabwe, with all the countries of Africa. I hope you can take this message to your colleagues from Africa who have come in here. I hope we can work together, whether it's in the United Nations, whether it's at Paris, on international fora, where I believe both Africa and India share very common interests. In fact, in Paris, where it is being sought to be thrust upon the developing countries, that it is our responsibility to take care of the environment and the problems challenges the planet is facing. I think it's very important that Africa and India and other developing countries make a loud voice and a clear articulation of our shared requirements that the developed world, which is responsible for the greenhouse gases up there, or at least most of it, should bear the burden of the cross. It is extremely unfair that certain countries on the back of cheap power have developed their economies, have provided highways and roads and jobs and houses, airports, ports for their people, built up economies of $50,000, $60,000 per capita incomes. And when it comes to bearing the additional cost to clean up the environment, it is sought to be made out to be a shared responsibility without distinction between the developed world and the developing countries. I think it's very important all of us speak in one voice, make it clear to the world that the development imperatives of India and Africa and other developing countries demand that we have a right to that space for the coming years to ensure that we also have cheap and low cost energy access for our people, to ensure that our development needs also get some space in the planet or in the environment. In fact, we are thinking of getting together all the countries between the Cape of Cancer and the Cape of Capricorn in the form of an international solar alliance. An alliance that will work on technology, it will work on policy, it will work on applications. So India is not oblivious to the fact that we have a responsibility to the environment. But we have to balance that responsibility with our development needs, and towards that end, we shall be delighted to further engage with your country, sir. We understand that it has gone through a crisis of pretty large dimension in recent years, but we also understand that the people of Zimbabwe have the resilience to convert this crisis into an opportunity, as you very rightly said earlier in the day. Your Look East policy is most welcome. We invite you to work more closely with India and can assure you not only EXIM Bank, but be it the Ministry of Power, the Ministry of Coal, the Ministry of Renewable Energy, all of us will work together with you to ensure, at least in the field of energy access, you get good quality, affordable power for all the people of Zimbabwe, and I do hope all the people of Africa in the shortest possible time, certainly not waiting for 2030 as articulated in the Sustainable Development Goals. We in India have decided to do that in the next 3.5 years, and we would be most delighted to help Africa also leapfrog into a developed stage, into an affordable energy access stage, much faster than the 2030 that the world is talking of. Once again, a very warm welcome to you, sir, to your colleagues from Zimbabwe, to the Indian business persons who have come down from Zimbabwe, to the Zimbabwean business persons, to Indian businesses who have the potential to work with Zimbabwe, and I'm sure in the days to come we can expand this relationship and ensure that the people of both countries develop even stronger ties, and India and African continent can work towards the wider goal of international peace and security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, may I just like to add, sir, that in this seminar, sir, apart from the focus on Zimbabwe, we also have the financial institutions from Africa. We had the president of the West African the bank, and I think Mr. Bashir is here. He was here in the morning session. So we have actually delegates from many African countries today, sir. And we will also be signing. I would like to introduce to the honorable ministers my friend Mr. Philip Kamara. Would you like to please come up and sit on the dais? Sir, he is from the African EXIM Bank, sir. So just like the Indian EXIM Bank, so this is the African EXIM Bank, which is headquartered in Cairo. So they provide the similar facilities that EXIM Bank provides to Indian businessmen. So they are there, and the other financial institutions were here in the morning when the Honorable Finance Minister was here. We had discussions with them, and sir, for the Ministry of Power, because you were heading that, over $1.5 billion of lines of credit to African countries is dedicated to strengthening their distribution system, sir. So we had some of the leading power companies in India. The Kalpataru, the chairman of Kalpataru was here. Then we had, they are doing a lot of transmission projects in Africa. Then we had Mr. Tulsi Tanti speak about the solar, the wind energy projects, 160 megawatt. The biggest wind farm in Africa is built by an Indian company. So we were showcasing the best in the industry. Then the Ashok Leyland trucks and buses have recently been supplied to Zimbabwe under a tourism project, sir. So over $50 million worth of vehicles have been recently shipped to Zimbabwe. That will strengthen your Zimbabwe's tourism. I'm sure that's a big gain to your economy, sir. So we are looking at continuing this partnership. We will be signing an MOU also with the EXIM Bank to strengthen bilateral cooperation. So I would like to show a very small clip. Is that ready? So a small clip which was prepared and which will also be shown later in the summit. This is to exactly show the India-Africa connect. After that short clip, sir, I will request the Honorable Minister to, we will do the signature there after the clip, and then there will be a small, then the signature ceremony between you. Thank you.
स्टील भाई ना बैठ जा यार, बैठ जाओ। इस गाड़ी वाले को जाके बोल यार, गाड़ी वाले को जाके बोलना कि बैठ जाओ यार। स्टील उसको बोलना यार।
Yeah. Well,
hey mobile.
While
I think the camera that's Doordarshan's currently. Even between the athletes and bike and
दोनों है। बड़ा कलर केबल है तो यानी कुछ फेस कंप्रेसर भी है, केबल नहीं है बराबर। ठीक है, मैं निकल रहा हूँ, जैसे ही निकलेगा सब। फटाफट जहाँ उतारा था वहाँ फटाफट पहुँच यार, हैदराबाद आ जाए।
Honorable Ministers, dignitary on the dais, and eminent audience, on behalf of Export-Import Bank of India, I'm very grateful to all of you to being here, and we look forward to engaging with African community and support the PM's vision in strengthening the ties between India and Africa. Thank you so very much. It has been a fruitful year. Thank you. May I also invite all of you to join us for high tea at the Terrace Garden, level LP. Please join us.
Thank you.